In this episode of the How to Get on Reality TV podcast, I give you a few quick tips to help you fill out the bio portion of your reality TV audition. Welcome to the How to Get on Reality TV podcast with Dan Giesling, where I answer your reality TV casting questions once a week. Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of the How to Get on Reality TV podcast. I'm super excited to be here today. I just got in from a road trip in Toronto, a business trip, and I had a chance to go on Big Brother Canada on the sideshow or the after show portion of their television show, and it was a lot of fun, and had a chance to say hello to a couple producers and talk to some contestants, former contestants. It's always good just to reconnect with people that have tried really hard to get on reality TV and to, just to get refreshed with the production aspect. It's just a lot of fun. I'm a huge reality TV fan, and it never gets old for me. I know sometimes people get sick or find me on TV being old or don't like watching, but for me it's a lot of fun, and there's just a lot of great people associated with that production in particular, and so that was a lot of fun. But in this episode we have a great question from Trevor all about that. Wasn't that smooth of a transition, but we got a great question from another listener this week. But before we get into that, I do want to remind you guys that if you have not had a chance to sign up for the email list, you can do so by going to howtogetonrealitytv.net/calls. And every other week I send an email out with some casting calls that you may not have heard of and some additional tips and tricks that are going to give you a little more insight that you might get from just the podcast, than just the podcast. It's free. I don't spam you. And you can just a reminder, you can sign up for that at howtogetonrealitytv.net/calls. But let's go ahead and get into our question of the week. This one is from Trevor, which is all about filling out the quick bio in reality TV auditions. And also he follows up with an interesting personal question specific to his casting story that I think will help you guys out.
Hey Dan, this is Trevor. Before I get to my question, I'd just like to say thanks for doing what you do. Your books and your podcast last year really helped give me that extra boost of confidence I needed when making my first audition video last year. My question is about the online application. I filled out one last year, and the only question that wasn't really cookie cutter was the 70-word self-bio. How important is this, and what should you include in it? And my second question is, I became a father of 3 at a rather young age and pretty quickly. Is that something I can build my story around, or is it something I should just mention and move on? Thanks.
Hey Trevor, thanks so much for the kind words. I appreciate that, and thank you for taking the time out to ask your question through the website, because I've been getting a lot of emails lately. I can always tell when casting is heating up because I get tons of emails, and it takes me a long time to respond. So the best way to get your question answered, or a better way to get your question answered, is through the podcast. And like I said before, it may take a few times. I know Trevor asked multiple times in different iterations of this question, and we're able to get you on this episode, Trevor. So I appreciate your persistence and also asking a great question. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Trevor's question is all about, hey, there's a 70-word bio in some reality TV auditions. So how the heck do I fill that out? What's the best way to do it? Because it seems like it's just a little bit, but it is important to an extent. So here's the best way that I think you should fill out the bio portion of a reality TV audition or application. And essentially what it is, it's your elevator pitch broken down into 70 words. So now you're asking yourself, well, Dan, what's the elevator pitch? So in terms of casting, you need to be able to break down your story and who you are in a matter of 20 seconds. Say you got caught in an elevator with a casting director and they said to you, hey, I'm casting for show X. We're looking for great contestants. Tell me why you would be great. You have to be able to tell that person your story or your breakdown by the time the elevator goes from floor 3 to the ground floor. So say that's 25, 30 seconds. That's it. So you need to get your story down to that really bite-sized chunk which is the most interesting things about you in maybe 2 to 3 short sentences. I don't know exactly how many words or how many sentences 70 words are, but if you keep it in that context, really quick hit points. So that's tip number one. Tip number two is that when you write out your sentence or when you write out your bio, make sure it's grammatically correct and spelled out properly and has the right punctuation, because while the bio is really important, which we're going to put an asterisk by that, take a little time to make sure the sentence makes sense. You shouldn't go to the application if it's the online portion, just sit down and just rip it off the top of your head. You should have an idea of how you're going to present yourself, read through it, and then put it in, feel good about it, instead of just winging it all the time. I know some people, there's some criticism of the podcast and things that I teach that, hey, Dan, some people may say, or one of the criticism I know that's out there is like, look, you're either made for reality TV and you're not. You can't really learn how to do that. And I wholeheartedly disagree, strictly from my own experience, on top of what you guys have told me that have had success in the process. So you may say, hey, Dan, well, I just want to wing it. I say, all right, go for it. But that's not what I teach, because there's so many variables that impact a reality TV cast, and you want to control everything you possibly can, and one of which is putting yourself in the best light, which means take a little extra time to actually think of a good bio and write it out. And the final tip on actually how to do this, writing the bio portion of your application, is a heck of a lot easier after you've shot your audition video, because essentially your audition video is going to be 3 minutes long, and it's really easy to condense a story down into a synopsis than to write a synopsis before you even know what your story is. And then of course you can say, well, Dan, throw this out the window if you go to an open casting call, but you guys know my thoughts on open casting calls. So really quick, the 3 tips is to make sure that you have it down to your elevator pitch and nothing more. Don't ramble on beyond the 70 words. Keep it within what they're looking for, because when the casting people look at these, they're not going to go through and read a page of information or 3 pages of information or a 3-page bio, because they're looking at thousands and thousands of applicants. They're going to look at, hey, here's a requirement, 70 words. Did you stay within the 70 words enough so that I can read it and get interested in you as an individual, whether your video, your open casting call? And 2, did you follow directions? So that's tip number 1. Tip 2 is make sure that you actually use proper grammar and you spell check everything and make sure it looks good. You don't want spelling errors in that. It's just not going to send the right message. Not that you have to be professional in your reality TV audition, but just look somewhat competent. And then the third part, of course, is don't just wing it. The best way to do it is to do it after you've already done your audition video, because it makes it a whole heck of a lot easier. So that's part 1 of your question, Trevor. Part 2, I know, and I like to reiterate this point, I love when people ask personal questions on the show that are specific to their story, because I just feel that, Trevor's probably not the only young dad that's listening to this, or a similar story to someone else that's more relatable. Maybe you're not a young dad, maybe you're a young mom, or maybe you've been through a similar situation that you can tie this to. So, which brings me back to Trevor's second part, is that he's a young father, so he had a child at a really young age, and should he use that part in casting? And right away, because remember, we don't kind of deal, and I always preface this because I don't want it to be taken the right way, but we deal with stereotypes in reality TV casting, and the fact that a young father, a couple things probably pop up to everyone's mind. Probably you were struggling at one point, it's a tough situation, it wasn't planned, and you probably worked very hard, and also an instant why factor for why you probably want to compete for a reality TV position or on reality TV is to provide a better life for your family. So right away, that's the direction my mind goes in thinking of a stereotypical young father. But really, you can make anything a part of your reality TV story. So yes, I think that's a great start, but it's all about how you frame it. Can you talk about you being a young father and deliver stories that explain the struggle? Not just say, hey, I'm a struggling young father, but tell real stories that display that. And I'm sure through that you share the passion and desire, for the love of your family. That also translates to probably a good reality TV character if you're willing to do all those things. But I want to tie things up by saying you can make anything really interesting as part of your reality TV story. Say, for example, you work at UPS or the post office. You can start out your audition video by saying, hey, look, I'm a packaging engineer. I specialize in engineering packages. And all of a sudden, someone's going to say, well, that sounds kind of weird. And then you say, well, look, I work at UPS. All of a sudden, you spark their interest, and you've made something that sounds like a normal everyday thing a little bit unique and a little bit out there and a little bit different. And you can make any normal story look that way just by how you present it. And it's also can be kind of funny, and also shows the casting director or casting associate how creative you can be. Because the more creative you are, not in like an artsy type way, but the more resourceful you are, the better of a character you're going to be on TV. But anyways, so I hope that helps you, Trevor. I think, if it's something that's important to you, and you can share a lot of your experiences, and you're able to tell stories about your background as a young father, I encourage you to do that. And for everyone else who is struggling to fill out the bio portion, don't sweat it. It's not the asterisk that I wanted to get back to is your bio is important, yes, but it's not as important as how you are in person. So say you write the worst bio of all time, but you're really good on camera, you're really dynamic and engaging. Don't sweat the bio. If you're struggling with it and you like, okay, Dan, I've come up with 3 to 4 sentences, it's okay, but it's not great, that's fine. Focus more time on your story and how you are in a presenting manner in front of a camera that's not a normal situation. So Trevor, thank you so much for asking the question on this week's podcast. As a small thank you for doing so, we're going to send you a free digital copy of my book, How a Normal Guy Got Cast on Reality TV. And if you're interested in having your question answered on the show, you can do so by going to howtogetonrealitytv.com/ask. And when you go to that site, whether on your tablet, your mobile phone, or on your computer, a little window is going to pop up with a voicemail. You hit record, ask the question. It's really easy. You can do it from your phone. You can do it from multiple different platforms. And you guys drive the show. So the better question we get, like one from Trevor that asks a general question and also a personal one. I just think it makes the show a heck of a lot better. And I think you guys get a lot more out of it when I'm able to break down individual situations as well. So if you're on the fence or you don't know how to submit a voicemail, you can do so by going to howtogetonrealitytv.net/ask. And Trevor, thanks for the question. So that wraps up another episode of the How to Get on Reality TV podcast. If you guys are applying for reality TV shows right now, if you're thinking about it, don't wait any longer. Get your stuff together. Over this past week when I was in Toronto, a lot of people came up to me and said, hey, I want to get on this show, I want to get on that show, but they never applied and they never put themselves out there. And a lot of people say they want to do something, they say they want to apply and get on reality TV, but they don't take the steps. It's better to just take action and get your application together, get your video together, and just get it out there. Even if it's not perfect, just put yourself in a position to be successful, to move forward through the rounds of casting, because the only way that's going to happen is if you put yourself out there. So if you're thinking about it, do it. Don't wait anymore. And also, just want to remind you guys that if you haven't had a chance to sign up for the email list, you can do so by going to howtogetonrealitytv.net/calls, where I send a bi-weekly email with casting calls that you may not find anywhere else or that you may not have access to, along with some additional tips and tricks about the casting process that you won't get on the podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I will see you guys next week. Later.